Vic Mignogna legal updates here. I'm going to make it as quick as possible. Transcripts have come out for the recent hearing. I've read through them multiple times now. And here's the takeaway, at least in my opinion. So the TLDR is this, and then after I give you the TLDR, I will show you some specific examples of some of the things that Judge Chubb had mentioned. Some things that are quite odd and some things that are entertaining as we see Lemoine gets called out for some of his shenanigans. But first, the TLDR. So most of the hearing was about the attempts that Lemoine is making to deposition Mr. Slaytosh and even Ty Beard, getting him to testify. Didn't go so well for Lemoine, though. At the moment, Chubb has not ruled in Lemoine's favor, but he did, to be fair, mention that he would consider it down the road. So not completely off the table, but for now, denied on those fronts. Now, Martinez did most of the speaking for Vic's counsel. Not actually Ty Beard on this one. So there you go, a new attorney, although he's been with it for a little bit, but new relatively considering to the amount that we've seen Ty Beard doing speaking previously. The next hearing is set to be on the 21st. Again, Lemoine wanted to deposition Slaytosh and also wanted Ty to testify. Denied for now on both accounts. Motion for sanctions. That looked like it was getting denied, but it looks like that's still kind of on the table. You're going to need more legal expertise on that one. I guess with the appeals coming up and that sort of thing, sanctions are still up in the air. But for now, it looked like Chubb wasn't going to consider the sanctions very much because the amount that the attorneys, specifically Lemoine, are asking for in their attorney's fees is, well, as I'm going to mention right now, Chubb actually found them to be ridiculously high. And I'll show you those quotes in a moment. And finally, Chubb also said that it was weird that Lemoine was attempting to get Ty to testify. So that's kind of funny. And then, of course, he also, this was kind of interesting, he mentioned that he didn't think a bad outcome would be if the appeals court does dismiss the case, but awards 0 attorney's fees. And some of his words, that everyone would just walk away. So I'll get the exact quotes. Again, that's greatly paraphrased, but here are the specific examples coming right up. So let's start with the attorney's fees. So you have Chubb who says, it seems like you are not really confident of what the appellate court is going to do. Lemoine responds, I am confident of what the appellate court is going to do regarding the dismissal. Chubb, yes. Lemoine, what I am not confident on is the sanction because the Texas Supreme Court has not ruled on the elements you're supposed to look at, and neither has the Fort Worth Court of Appeals. Chubb, you've already filed your attorney's fees motion, right? Lemoine, that's correct. Chubb, I didn't look at it, but how much are you asking for? Lemoine, I believe we are asking for $259,000. Chubb, and you want sanctions on top of that? Lemoine, yes. The court, well, Chubb, okay, that seems like a lot of money. Lemoine, it is. Chubb, that seems like that might deter somebody. Lemoine, well, just paying my client back is not much of a deterrence for an individual who crowdfunded his own litigation fees. They're so salty about that. He says, and didn't incur any economic pain to bring his this lawsuit. You can debate the economic pain part, especially when Lemoine's fees alone are pretty much the extent of the GoFundMe. So that's a weak point. Lemoine should know that's a very weak point. But I have some more quotes for you guys. Let me pull those up as well. So this was quite odd. There was a little exchange regarding the attempts to deposition Slaytosh, given the jurisdiction that the court has. And Chubb suggested that Lemoine try to serve him at the airport. Now, it seems like he was kidding, but it's hard to tell when you just see text here. And, of course, a disclaimer. As usual, transcripts, they might not always be 100% accurate. But here's this weird exchange. So, Lemoine, if I may not be able to, if the court ruled against me with regard to Mr. Slaytosh, I could ask Mr. Beard the same questions. Chubb, but you might find Mr. Slaytosh at DFW Airport one day, and you can get him. Lemoine, after the court has already granted the motion? Chubb, you can subpoena him to come here. Lemoine, I don't. He's outside the subpoena power of the court. Chubb, not if he's sitting at DFW Airport, he's not. Like, what? Lemoine, well, that's true. If I could find him there, true, which is why I did the subpoena. So that was odd. I don't know if they were joking around, maybe half and half. I don't know. The next thing we're going to discuss are the highlights from the Ty Beard discourse. So some highlights. Chubb says, yeah, he says, actually, I understand the necessity of having him testify, but I don't think it's necessary for this hearing. I think it will be necessary in the future hearings, if there is any, to obviously get him to testify. But I mean, we're just talking about sanctions and attorney's fees, but you already have your attorney's fees. I think the sanctions, you can probably base it on the pleadings pretty easily. Lemoyne, okay. Judge, we have subpoenaed. We issued trial subpoenas for Mr. Mignogna and Mr. Beard to testify. Chubb, yeah, why do you want Mr. Beard to testify? That's kind of weird. And then he says, well, actually, yeah, he further says, I'll tell you what I'll do. When we have that hearing and you put him on the stand, if I think it becomes relevant to have him come here, I'll let you do it then. Lemoyne, okay. Chubb, I'll consider it, or reconsider it anyway. Lemoyne, I appreciate that, Judge. Chubb, well, let's just see what he says. Is Victor coming regarding Vic Mignogna? They talk about Victor, Vic and all that sort of thing. And then there's also this portion here. Chubb says, yeah, I don't want to have an attorney testify. I mean, I just think it's, I don't know how you can get around attorney-client privilege to have them testify to anything. Lemoyne, what he says to Mr. Slatosh is not attorney-client. If Mr. Beard is talking to him on the phone or sending him an affidavit, that, Chubb, is it work product? Does he get into any of that, though? Lemoyne, I don't know how it could be work product. He's not, Mr. Slatosh is not the agent of Mr. Mignogna. He's an opposing party. If you blast it out on the internet, here's my, and then he gets cut off by Martinez, who says, if I may, Your Honor, he's not an opposing party. Chubb says, no, he's not an opposing party. Then Lemoyne says, oh, I'm sorry if I said that. So that's pretty funny. And then we got one more part on the tie portion that was interesting. Lemoyne says, but that is shared with somebody that's not in privy with them. They didn't brief the issue judge. They did not put on evidence that there is an attorney work product. This is just an argument that Mr. Martinez just came up with right now. And Chubb responds with, well, I'm coming up with it too, because I think it's weird that you subpoenaed an attorney. So mentions that a few times. And finally, the quote regarding everybody walks away is also a little interesting. So let's take a look at that one. Chubb says, but the problem, I think, is that we are 30 days past this now. And so if for some reason the appellate court thinks it was a final order, you'll get zero on attorney's fees and their case goes away. But they may like that too. I don't know, because you'd get zero and there everybody walks away. And so that's not a bad deal for them either, to a certain extent. And so I would just have concerns without getting something from the appellate court saying that we need to hear it, that it needs to come back here. So, of course, there's some context missing. They're talking about the length of time since the first appeal's gone through and Chubb's ruling looking like a final order and things like that. Just some nitty-gritty stuff that's not included. Those are the highlights, though. That's the TLDR for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. And for yesterday's video, shouts out to Bruno, Ishra, KJ, Collins, Lancaster Kid, Richard O'Neill, Sharon Young, Rookie Joe Star, KJ, Collins twice? KJ Collins twice? Yeah, hey, thank you, man. Actually, wait a second. We have two KJ Collins, actually. Two KJ Collins. Hey, thank you both. Intimidator108 and Skella Kitty. Appreciate all you guys. Hope you also enjoyed this one, and I'll see you next time.